This is Gemara in Kiddushin and Daf Samoch Gimel. Once again, we like to dedicate to the incredible Schos HaTorah to all of Achenu Kol Beis Yisrael and Esunim Batzaro Bashivya B'Siyata Dishmaya, the Schos of Talmud Torah, those being Oisek in the Melchante Shel Torah, should be Matzel, should be Megan for all of Klal Yisrael. We're holding on, Samach Beis, Amin Beis. We are 4 lines from the bottom. Amar Abaye. Comes Ling Abaye again. I apologize the lack of video. I hope in the coming days, middle of moving over, transitioning, having some technology issues. Hopefully the video will be back in full form in the next day or so. Amar Abaye, 3 lines from the bottom. Samach Beis, Amin Beis. Rav Elazar ben Yaakov, V'Rameir, Kulus V'Irluhu. They all hold. So Abaya segues from the previous sugya into a very large, very relevant, very oft-discussed topic in Shas. Adam makne davar shaloi b'la'olam. Can one give over something that is not yet in the world? Says Abaye, both Rav Elazar ben Yaakov and Rameir are of the opinion that one can, yes indeed, give over something even though it is not yet in the world. Explains the Gemara of Rav Elazar ben Yaakov. Hadam Aaron, Rav Elazar ben Yaakov, is that which we said in the previous daf, the brisa that discussed that you can make truma for something that didn't even grow a third. We see that you could be giving over something that is shalai ba'ala'ilam. Rebbe, where is the shita of Rebbe on this regard? The Tanya, as we learned in a brisa. We turn over to Samach Gimel Amud Aleph, says the Gemara, Loisas Gir Eved El Adainav. Explains Rabbi. The pasuk in Devarim teaches us, one, you should not deliver a slave El Adainav to his master. If a slave escapes, you should not return him. Rabbi says, what is this referring to? A Gemara that we've had already, both in Yavamas and in Gittin. Says Rabbi, B'lekeach Eved Al-Manas L'Shachra Kasim Edaber. Someone purchases an Eved with the mindset and condition to free him. Says the Gemara, Hechidami. What's the case? Amar Rav Nachman Yitzchak going to Kasav Lei. When one bought an Eved, he wrote to the Eved, Likish Ekachech. When I purchase you, Hare Atzmacha Kinuyalach Me'achshav. You acquire to yourself as of now that even though such an entity is not yet in the world, you do not as of yet own the Eved. Rebbe still is of the opinion you could effect such an acquisition. Rebbe siding with Elazar ben Yaakov, Adam makne davar shaloi b'la'olam. Continues the Gemara Rameir. This is Tanya number 3. Abaye said Elazar ben Yaakov, Rebbe and Rameir. So number 3, where's Rameir de Tanya? Again, a Mishnah that we've had numerous times in Yavamas and Ksubis. So says the woman, I'm marrying you after I divorce, so you divorce. After I am freed from slavery, or you after your husband dies, after your sister dies, after your Vama gives you chalitza, einoi mekudesh, says the Tanakama. All these are cases which are davar shaloi b'la'olam. Does not work. Comes like Rameir Aimer mekudeshes. Says Rameir, no. Even though these are davar shaloi b'la'olam, still says Rameir, the Kiddushin is chal. Rav Yechon Asan l'Raimer, no, Eino Mekudeshes. Yudah Nasi Amr Mekudeshes. Umata Amamru Eino Mekudeshes. Says the Gemara, what is the reason for them not to be Mekudeshes? Misham Eva, because of the Eva that could happen, that if someone makes Kiddushin dependent on his own wife's death, or the woman's current husband's death, this will lead to animosity and hatred. Asks the Gemara of an Echshanami, Rav Yudah Anasi. Rav Yudah Anasi just said in the previous case, Mekudeshes. So why isn't Rav Yudah Anasi listed as someone who holds Adam Makne Davar Shalai B'La'olam? Explains the Gemara, Hainu Rebbe, Hainu Rav Yehuda Nasi, it is the same opinion. Asks the Gemara of Nami Rabbi Akiva, why did Abaye not include Rabbi Akiva? Who's Rabbi Akiva? The Tanya, not who's Rabbi Akiva, excuse me. In which case, the Tanya or the Tanam we learned, Kainam Shani Oise Lepicha, Ein Tzarech Lahafer. Says the Brisa or Mishnah, someone says to their husband, Kainam, that which I make to you, Allah is, the husband does not have to be made for such a neder, because the neder is not effective. However, Rabbi Akiva Omer says Rabbi Akiva Yafer, he does indeed have to be made for an annul such a vow. Why? Shema Tadid of Allah of Yasser Min Arayullah. The reason being, explains Rabbi Akiva, she might produce more than is Rayu to her husband, and therefore the neder will kick in. So what do we see? Says the Gemara, we see that according to Rabbi Akiva as well, Ada Magna Davar Shalai Balaylam. Even though as of yet she isn't making such, but since it might potentially happen, therefore he should be made for it. Explains the Gemara, no, Kasha, there's no reason to include Rabbi Akiva. Why? Because Allah, we learned on this Mishnah that Rav Huna Brei Rav Yeshua, Amar Rav Huna Brei Rav Yeshua, by Meres, Ikadshu Yadai Loiseyem, V'yadayim Esnayu Ba'ilam. Because we explained that Mishnah is referring to a case where one was Mekadesh, their hands to their creator, and the hands are an entity which is Ba'al and therefore this is not included in the discussion of Adam Davar Shaloi Ba'al, because the hands which create the Masi Yadayim are indeed Ba'al. We continue with the Mishnah, about 8 lines from the wide lines of Samach Gimel and Aleph, that says as follows: someone says to a woman, you're married to Kiddushin, I speak on your behalf to the Shalton, to the ruler. Or he says, I'm married to a Kiddushin, I work for you like a laborer, a payel. If Tiber loves Shilton, if he spoke to the ruler, or Vasi Makapayel, Mikudashes, Vim Lav, Aina Mikudashes. Says the Gemara, Amrei Shlagid Vushan Asla Shave Pruta. Together with the act of speaking to the ruler, together with the act of working, he had to have given her a Shave Pruta in order for the Kiddushin to work, says Reish Lakish. Ask the Gemara, Ubischar Loi, what do you mean? Why can't he marry her with the work itself? He says on condition that I work for you. So why can't the work be something which is considered a Shave Pruta? And that's how he's going to marry her. V'hadanya, as we learned in the Brisa, on the 2 lines of the wide lines. Bischar shehir karvtich al chamar, of the schar that I drive you on a donkey, or shashavticha bekaroin, I see you on a wagon, or besfina, or a ship, eino megudeshes. But bischar shehikivach al chamar sheshivcha bekaroin, or besfina, megudeshes. However, if he says in condition that I will give you a ride, or I will give you a ride on the donkey, or I will give you a ride on the wagon or the ship, then it is Mikudashes, because it's something in the future, and for those wages he can marry her. Maybe the price is referring to where he gave a Shavapruta. Bischar, Kamar, it says Bischar, so it can't be Vaid. And furthermore, Tani, we learned in our Raisa, bolstering the Kasha 3 lines into the wide lines. Shavi mi b'tzavasa b'savta v'kadish l'cha. If a woman says to a man, sit with me in my company and I'll become married to you, or she says, chayk lefanai, make a joke for me, rakay lefanai, dance for me, asa kedimas hazeh, she says, make something like a certain structure, so shaman we evaluate. If the act that he is doing is worth a Shava Pruta, they're Mikudeshes. If not. So we see again that the service itself, that the action could be that which he marries her with, as we're saying, as long as the action is something that is valued as a Shava Pruta, there is Kiddushin. Suggests the Gemara of V'chi Teima, 5 lines into the Y9, Zachanam Devil Shava Pruta, V'shamanai Segamar. It says you evaluate. So clearly, we're saying the service itself is enough to effect the Kiddushin. Says the Gemara, you are correct. To Yufta de Reish Lakish, this is a kasha on Reish Lakish. Reish Lakish responds, Atani Bara Savar. Says Reish Lakish, the Tana Bara, literally the outside Tana, the Tana of those Braisais hold, that whenever you do wages, you only pay at the end. And therefore, if you didn't have these actions, which indeed would incur that one has to pay for them, when you finish the action, at that point is when you're obligated to pay. And therefore, you could be married with the value of that action. However, that the whole time you owe them the money, and that's the reason why you're only able to be mikudeshes if you actually give a shaveh pruta. Asks the Gemara, "My doctor the Rishagish Hogmi Mastizan Why did Reish Lakish push him to learn the Mishnah in such a manner?" To answer the kasha, Amar Rav Masisa Kashiyase, Mari Tanamanash Nitnis Bischar El Shmamina Kol Amanas Heichad Yavlahu. He was bothered by the wording of the Mishnah. Why did the Mishnah say Almanas? Nisni, the Mishnah could have said that you married Bischar. Rather, Shema Mina, that what? Anytime one says it's Almanas, it's Ki'ilu. He gave her something. We continue with the Mishnah at the bottom of Samul Gimel Amud Aleph. Almanas she'yer zabo rata megudeshes b'mlavin megudeshes. Meisa avreiz megudeshes meisa ben melamden av loimer she'enai roitzes. So if someone makes his marriage conditional on his father agreeing to the marriage, so if he agrees, then great. If not, not. What if the father is nifter, so we don't know if he agrees? Says the Gemara, they are mikudeshes. What if the child is nifter, so we don't know if this woman is in limbo? Then says the Gemara, we teach the father, say no, right? And then the whole thing was never chal in the first place. Asks the Gemara, and of course, excuse me, in the last case, what it would do is it would nullify from Yibum. Ask the Gemara, Maya Manashi Yerta Abba, what does it mean that your father will agree? If you tell me that the father say yes, then what do you do with the case the father's nifter? He didn't say in, he didn't say he agrees. Ella, says the Gemara, what does it mean when he says Manashi Yerta Abba? As we turn over to Samul Gimel Amud Beis, explains the Gemara. Ella, the father's quiet. But ask the Gemara, we see at the end of the Bryce Mishnah, Mesa Ben, if the son dies, Laman has Avloimer Shena, right? So we teach father say he doesn't want Amai, Vahashasik, and his quietness on its own should confirm the Kiddushin. Ella Amar La Manas, Shloyim Chabi doesn't protest. Reisha B'chatam, Mizyasav Seifa B'chatama. Amar Ravanai. That's a kasha. Comes out as different reasons in the Mishnah. And says, Rav Yana in Shuam Reish Lakish Shaminal Rav Yamai Tachkina and Makmina Mastisam betray Taimi Valiba Dechad Tana. We rather have two different things going on in the Mishnah according to one Tana more than V'loy Makmina, but not to establish the Mishnah betray Tanai and two conditions. Ubachad two Tanoim, excuse me. Ubachad Taima Rav Yisrael Barami Amar Lo Chad Tamahu. But that's what the words themselves mean. And therefore that's how he explains the Mishnah. We pick it up from the second Mishnah on Samul Gimel Amud Beis. So married off his daughter, but he can't recall to whom. Someone comes and says, I was the guy that married her. Then when he is believed. Let's say two people come forward and say they both married this woman. Or they can make up that one gives a get and one indeed could go and marry this woman. And we pick it up from the Gemara about 15 lines down. Amar Rav says Rav Naman litin get ve'eino Naman likanes. Says Rav that when the Mishnah says that the father is believed to say that he married, not the father, excuse me, that when someone says that he married this woman, he's believed, but he's only believed with regard to give her a get. That at some level we're chayshish this means for Kiddushin. But of course, says the Gemara, he's not believed to actually marry her. Now explains Rav, one would not do a sin if he doesn't get anything. So if he's not gaining, therefore he's believed. Give a get. Why? We are going to say, wait, maybe they didn't actually get married. And therefore we have to be chayshish for the Yitzhahara. That's Rav's opinion. Ravasi Amar no af ne'eman likanes. He's even moided to marry her. O moide Ravasi by meris niskadashti. Ve'enu yodas lamid niskadashti. If someone's like married someone, I don't know which person. Uba'achad va'amar. Ve'amar kedashtiya she'ein ne'eman likanes. Then in that case, there is no ne'emanis. So we have machlekes Rav and Ravasi had to learn the Mishnah. Says the Gemara, Tanan, Akasha, and Rav, we learned in the Mishnah. One can marry, one can even get to you after the Rav. Rav says, no, it's not Akasha. Shiny also the Kivi Echad Behadeh or Tute Mirsis. These are larger Mirsis, because someone else will know whether you're lying as the other guy was there with you. Says the Gemara, Tani Kavas Ravasi, I'll bring your eye. Kedashti is BTV no dealing be Kedashti Abachar Vamar Kedashti Avanam on the Kanes Konsa. Obachar Vamar Kedashti lets the guy marry and someone else says, no, I was the guy. Len look at man Eliser love. Then it's on his power to answer her on the other guy. And continues the Raisa, an unrelated point. Isha Shamar Niskadashti, even though that's the Niskadashti. Obachar Vamar Nid Kedashti ain't Namaz Nikanis. Why not? Because even if it never happened, a woman's nature is that she will cover up. We see similar applications to Chasichot. A woman always is more prone to covering up than to reveal the truth. Therefore, we always have to be more concerned in such a scenario. We conclude with one last Shaila Ibayalahu. Ma'u Liskal al Yadai. What is the halacha? Is the father believed to say he gave over his daughter? So much so that if she goes in his mizana, there would be skila. Rav Amar, no, Ein Soklin, Ravasi Amar Soklin. Rav Amar, Ein Soklin, Ki Hemun Rachman Alav, Li Surah. We believe the father just to say this in Isra, like Katol Loi Mehemna, but not for death. Ravasi Amar Soklin, no, you even believed for skila. And explains the Gemara, Soklin Lekuli Milsa, Hemne Rachman Alav, says Ravasi, the father has credibility and believability for everything. Amar Ravasi, but says Ravasi, Umadina, but I admit, by Meristis Kadashi Shein Solkin, that there would be no skila. Amar Ravasi, Hani Shemaitza Didi Mefrasha Negra. That don't make any sense, says Ravashi. Hashtam Magam Shebali Kanis Kaines. Oimer Solkin, Magam Shebali Kanis ain't Kanis ain't no danger. Solkin, of course, there should be skila. But Loi says the Gemara is not true. It's a special ne'emanos that the Torah gave to the father and not to her. We'll stop over here. We'll pick it up from Rav Chisda on the next year. B'siyata Dishmaya.